Hi, this is our June Christmas card club, and we're going to make shaker cards. I love these cards. So super cute and easy to do once you know the tricks. So this is the first one, and the second one looks like this, and the third one is like this. So what you received in your kit were some clear envelopes. You got 4 of those, and you got 2 of the little skinny ones for the third card. So let's get started. For the first card, looks like this. Okay, you are going to need your regular card base, and I'm using Just Jade. It's the same I used in the sample, so Just Jade, and we're going to have it horizontal or landscape with the fold up. Okay, then you're going to need 1 piece of white cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. You're going to need the same size cardstock actually for inside the card as well. So you'll need 2 of those 5 1/4 by 4 inch pieces of white cardstock. You're also going to need a piece of designer series paper, and again you'll see I'm not really using Christmas paper, but it works, so you can use anything you want. And I am using again it's 5 1/4 lengthwise and 4 inches height-wise. So if you've got a pattern, you want to be aware of that. So I've got a pattern here, and I want it to go horizontally, so it's 5 1/4 this way, 4 inches this way. All right, then the first thing I did was I actually stamped on the DSP before I did anything else. And on this card you'll see I stamped Christmas cheer across it with a little star. And this time I have chosen to use peace and happiness. I'm using the shaded spruce ink, and I am going to ink up my sentiment, and then I'm going to use this little strip right here, I think, or maybe I want to turn this over because maybe this one will work out better. So I'm just going to start in the middle as much as possible because I want the peace and happiness to be totally red at some point. And then I'm going to just eyeball the peace and happiness on either side. And so then I've got the peace and happiness in the center, and I've got a little bit of it on either side, and that works great. I added a little star in between each one on my original, and I'm going to just leave this one plain right now. The next thing I did is I took 3 stockings and I stamped them. And I stamped them on colored cardstock. On the sample, I used, I think, soft suede, soft seafoam. And on this one, I am using, I think, Old Olive, because that's just what I have on hand. I put both of my stamps on the same block because I am stamping multiple images, and I like to stand up when I stamp them off because I get a clearer image. Okay, so after I did that, I used my cut and emboss machine, and I cut out my little guys, but since you may or may not have a cut and emboss machine, you can just cut them out. And I'm just showing you here that's not even the same color, but anyway, you just cut them out and just cut close to the image. You don't need to be right on top of the image. And you're actually going to need 3. I have 4 of these, so I can choose if I want to have a solid, open, weave, and then a solid, or if I want 2 opens and a solid. Maybe I'll do that this time. I used 2 solids and an open for this one, and I'm going to use 1 solid and 2 opens for this one. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take my piece of cardstock and I'm going to glue it flat on the piece of the white cardstock that I have out here. So I'm going to just use some of my Tombow glue. I'm going to glue down my DSP. Okay, and now I am going to bump these stockings up on dimensionals. So let me grab my dimensionals here. And the reason why you want to put them on dimensionals is you want the sequins to kind of fall around them, behind them. And so I am going to just, I put them more in a straight line in the first one I made. This one, I am going to stagger them a little bit more, so they're more exaggerated. So I am putting this guy up here, and then this last guy with the dimensionals, I am putting him right here. Now, I don't quite like where this one is. I think I have him too far over, so I'm just going to carefully pick him up. And I'm going to place him more towards the middle. So I'm happier with that. Okay. Now, I am going to use one of my envelopes, and I'm going to place this whole piece inside the envelope so that the flap goes to the back. Okay, so I placed it in the envelope. The flap would open to the back. Okay, so I am going to put it low into the corner here so that it is right at the corner and right on, right in there, as tight as I can. So I've got a good edge here and a good edge here, and there's some extra here and extra here. That's all right. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some of my sequins and I'm just going to pour them into the top of my piece. So now I have some sequins in there, and I am going to now carefully take the tape off of the envelope, and I'm going to fold it over as tightly as I can. So now I've got a tight edge here, here, and one right here, and I still have this extra piece on the top. what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that over and I'm going to tape it down. And I would usually use Scotch tape, but since you can't see the Scotch tape, I'm going to use just some washi tape right now so you can really see where I put the tape. And you'll see that I placed it all the way down on the back. So now I've got the envelope right up, butted up against all four corners, and my little guys shake. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that whole piece and I'm going to glue it onto my card base. So be generous with your glue on this. Go out to the edges and in the middle. So I've got some out to the edges and in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to position it where I want it on the card base. And I'm going to hold it down for just maybe 30 seconds or so, just so that it sticks really well. It won't take long. And there you've got your shaker card, okay? So for the inside of your card, I took a small piece of the DSP, I glued it at the bottom, and I chose an appropriate sentiment to glue at the stamp at the top, and glued it in place. So let's do that now. So I'm going to open this up. I am going to glue a little piece of paper, which I didn't get, so I won't do that now, but I would glue my little strip of paper. It's 5 1/4 by maybe 3/4 of an inch here. I am going to pick the sentiment that I want to put on the inside, and for this one I am going to choose It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. So I'll pull out my shaded spruce again and stamp this guy up. Position it towards the top. Close my ink so I don't get it anywhere else. And I am going to glue this guy inside. So there is your shaker card number 1. So cute, right? Easy. Okay, so now for shaker card number 2. Hold on, I have pieces here to make with you live next week. Okay. All right, for this card, we are going to use the same technique, but it's going to be on a vertical stance this time. So I am going to use, I used soft sea foam on this one. I'm using Just Jade on this one. And for this card, you're going to need the regular card base, and then you're going to need a piece of Whisper White, 2 pieces actually, one for the inside, one for the outside. I'll stick one in right now, so I just have it there. And they are, again, 4 inches across and 5 1/4 inches high. I didn't stamp anything on this guy this time. I just added some things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year at the top. You can choose whatever sentiment you would like. So I have that stamped. And the next thing I'm going to do is add a little piece of designer series paper at the bottom. And again, it's not Christmas paper, but it works. If you've got Christmas paper, that works too. It's going to be 4 inches across and 1 inch high. And I'm going to glue that down. And the next thing I'm going to do is add this little border. This little border is actually, this little border right here is actually a piece of torn paper. You know, I like to do that. So I started out with a piece of 4 by 1 inch, and I just ripped it in half. So one piece will work for both of your cards. So I'm just going to use one piece and save one piece. And again, I like to use the jaggedy side. There's a cleaner side, and then there's a side that has more of the fibers showing. I like the fibrous side. So I am going to glue that, and you can see I used a different color this time because that was the little 1 inch piece that I had. It doesn't matter. They all look great. Okay, and what I am doing with this is just laying it over the DSP, and you can choose to go as high or as low as you want. Okay, then you're going to pick your stockings again, and I for this one I chose one of the dark and one of the light stockings, and I am going to do the same this time. Again, I stamped them, and then you can fussy cut them, or you can use a cut and emboss machine. I love the cut and emboss machine. And you can kind of decide how you want your stockings to be, if you want them to be more in a random pattern, if you want them to follow the same kind of angle, if you want them to be straight. Let's see what these look like. I put these at an angle, and I'll maybe not put these quite so much at an angle, and maybe just go a little bit up and down. And so again, I'm applying the dimensionals on the back of the stockings. Oops. I take a pick tool would be much easier for this, but let's see. And this one I will put like, yeesh. I found a dimensional in the bed yesterday. Are you surprised? I'm not. They're all over the place. Stuck to me in different places. I find them everywhere. Okay, and this guy is like this. So now you'll see that for this card I made them more up and down, and this one I did more at an angle. They both look good. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the same thing I did before. I'm going to take my clear envelope, and I'm going to put the flap to the back. So I'm going to insert my little decorated piece here, like that. And I'm going to push it over to the corner here. Then I'm going to put a few sequins in there. They can be any kind of sequins that you want. These just happen to be the snowflake sequins. You don't have to use snowflake sequins. You can use whichever sequins you want. As a matter of fact, I'll use different ones on my last card. Okay, so you're going to take the little piece off of the flap and fold that flap all the way over so it's nice and tight. So now you've got it nice and tight at the top, at the bottom, on one side, and then you've got one loose side. And again, using your tape, and I'm going to use washi tape again, just so it shows up well for you. I would be using, normally I would use Scotch tape for this. And I'm going to just make sure that it's nice and tight all the way across. I'm going to start at both of the ends and then close off the piece in the middle. Okay, so there you've got your little shaker card again. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to glue this flat onto your card base. Get it a little bit closer to the edges. There you go. Okay, and we're going to hold it down just for a minute or so, not even quite. Just make sure that it has a good chance of sticking. Okay, and so there you go. There's your card front, and for the inside, I just stamped my own sentiment and glued a piece of DSP that matches the outside on the inside. So I will just go ahead and, for time's sake, I will just glue that piece onto the bottom here real quickly. And it is 4 inches by not quite an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. It actually was just a little leftover piece, so you can do the same with yours. And then I glue my piece inside. And just for time's sake, I'm not stamping on the inside, but I would stamp the sentiment right at the top right here. So there you've got card number 2. And for card number 3, you are going to again start with a vertical card base and 2 pieces of white, a basic white cardstock, and they both measure 4 inches across, 5 1/4 inches high. And on this one, I'm actually going to stamp on my card. So I'm going to stamp on the right hand side. So let's do that real quickly. I'm going to stamp my sentiment first, and I think I picked the same one, May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. So I'm going to do it not quite in the middle. I'm going to leave an imaginary 1/4 inch on the right hand side, and I stamped it there so I have some open. And then I am going to take my leaf pattern and I'm going to stamp it kind of at the top, and then cascading down the card below the sentiment. And one more time. All right, and then in this card set or stamp set, they have actually the fill-in little pieces for the leaves, and I'm going to stamp them off first, and then I'm going to stamp them on. And when that gives you a change in the color saturation. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't be able to see the lines on the leaves. So it's a tap, 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 stamp off, and stamp on. I got these pretty good, but if you're not directly in the lines and you're a little off, nobody's going to know. It just makes them look a little more painterly, right? Okay, so there you go for the decorated white piece of cardstock. Now for your shaker part, it's a thin shaker, so you're going to use the little thin piece of an envelope that I gave you, and you're going to use a piece of cardstock that is 1 3/4 by 5 1/4, and you're going to do the same thing with your DSP, 1 3/4 by 5 1/4. 1 3/4, 5 1/4. And you are going to glue those together right off the bat. So just take your glue and put that on there. Now I added 2 of the stockings here. They're overlapped a little bit and they're bumped up on dimensionals. So I'm going to, actually, I stamped out a couple of the stars to see how they would look on this one. And maybe I'll try the stars this time. They're a tight fit, but just for something different, let me try the stars. And I'm going to bump them up on dimensionals. Just 2 dimensionals each should work just fine. And this little guy. I think the stockings are awfully cute on this, and I will use the stockings when we are live, but just to change it up, I am going to use the stars this time. And there we go. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to find the top of this little piece, and I'm going to slide it all the way down. Okay? And it fits pretty close in there, so you really don't need to do a whole lot of anything. But what I did do is, because you've got a lot of extra here, I'm going to snip some of that and just put that off to the side. And then I am going to put my little, I wasn't going to use these. I was going to use some of these new little guys, and I'm just going to use my fingers and attempt to throw them in here. And you want to get them on the front side of your shaker. I got a couple on the back, but I'm not going to worry about it. They're flat. Okay, so I've got my little sequins on the inside. And I'm going to just really focus on folding this one over on the back. And so again, using your Scotch tape, you're going to just make that as tight as possible. And then you've got your shaker right there. And you're going to glue that onto the left side of your card front. So take your glue, and glue it down. And then you're going to glue that whole thing onto your card base. Now, on this card, I did take a piece of ribbon and tied it around the piece here before I glued it on. Here, I just did it plain, and I think it looks good. You could always add a little ribbon afterwards. Make a little bow. And glue it flat. For the inside, I just stamped the sentiment, and then I took 2 strips of the DSP that were 5 1/4 inches by 1/2 inch and glued them on either side. And there you have your third shaker card. Hope you have fun.